Okay, I'm going to start with a mantra, and then we'll come into a meditation from the mantra. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotir Gamaya Mrityor Ma Amritam Gamaya. Oh, lead me from falsehood to truth, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. And for those of you that are just joining or coming back from your lunch, just inviting you to close your eyes and softening the sit bones into the chair, feeling it underneath you, relaxing the shoulders from the ears, just noticing the breath as it flows in and out of the body, knowing you're in the perfect time and perfect place for your yoga journey. Inviting a smile, the inner smile, and just smiling to your body. This communication to our body. Hi, hello. Bring it a smile. It's okay to relax. And just notice how everything in the body is listening to you. And now with each breath in and each breath out, bring this simple mantra, breathing in, I am loving awareness. And breathing out, I am loving awareness. And breathing in, I am loving awareness. And breathing out, I am loving awareness. We're going to stay with this for a minute or two. And this meditation is this simple. If the mind wanders, just bring it back to the breath and the mantra, I am loving awareness. Breathing in, I am loving awareness. And breathing out, I am loving awareness. And when you're ready, inviting you to open your eyes. One thing I would say is a theme through what I've heard from the teachers that we had before us is this word coherence. And coherence as a teacher, when we embody this internal state of coherence, where our energy and our thoughts and our emotions are all working together, then what comes through us and what is expressed through us is embodied. This is this quality of embodiment. And I would say over the years, I've come to see the truth that who we are in any given moment is the frequency that's moving through us, the quality of our thought and our feeling, um, our energy. That's who we are in that moment. There's no such thing as someone who's a greedy person or an angry person. You know, sometimes anger expresses itself or greed expresses itself, but it's actually untrue to put any label on a person saying this is who you are. That's a quality that you're expressing. There's also a loving person and a kind person and a compassionate person, right? But when we say that and we fix it, what we're saying is that we often experience this quality with this person. And this is what is our source of empowerment as individuals and especially as teachers. The more we become aware of this, we can um, consciously choose to place our attention on that which expands us, that which refines us, that which opens us. And whatever we place our attention on, that's what expands. And when as teachers, we can empower other people with that understanding, they experience the freedom of being able to choose how they are and who they are and how they show up. And this is, I think, one of the great gifts that yoga gives any of us. It gives us freedom, the certainty of freedom, that you are free within your own body and mind to conduct your experience. And as we experience this as teachers in our own lives, we become more and more confident that this is true. And our confidence that this is true transfers as confidence to the person that we're teaching. And this is something that's really, really beautiful. And it's not that I know better or I know more than you. It's that I know in my experience that this is true. And I'm sharing this possibility with you. So I want to reframe this idea of teaching as this top-down thing and sharing or a transmission of something that's actually moved us or changed us in our own hearts, in our own lives. And it's so beautiful and uplifting that we want other people to have that opportunity, right? Now, it can get dangerous because the Jehovah's Witness might say the same thing, like, I've seen the Lord. This is the way in the light, and you got to follow it. And yoga takes a different approach, which it's not here to impose a belief on someone. And at the same time, it also recognizes that it's hard to see that possibility when we're in a place where that's not what we're thinking or what we're feeling. Like people are like, yeah, I mean, that sounds really nice from the place that you are, but that's not my reality. And so yoga as an embodied practice is trying to create an experience where someone actually feels the thing that you want them to be able to move towards, right? And they're like, oh, okay, wait a minute, I did feel that, right? And this is important. And I think each of the teachers that have come before have really articulated that. And uh, as I was coming to this talk and this notion of teaching from embodied wisdom, I recalled one of my favorite prophecies, and it's the prophecy of the Shambhala warrior. I don't know if anybody's heard of this, but as the old story goes, the old story, who knows, how old it is, that there's going to be a time where steel birds fly through the sky and iron towers spew poisonous smoke into the atmosphere, and eyes made of glass watch the acts and the thoughts of each person. And in this time, barbarian powers are going to be marauding the earth, raping her of her resources, engaging in heinous conflict and terrible crimes, and that during this time, the gates of Shambhala will open. And those who have have come to this time to respond to this time, they will find themselves to this land of Shambhala. And these people will be called Shambhala warriors. And Shambhala warriors are not individuals that you can see through insignias. They don't wear a certain uniform and they don't have a certain symbol that you can use to identify them. However, they will be able to recognize each other through two qualities that they train in. And these qualities are actually their weapons in this time of darkness. And those weapons are the sword of insight and the shield of compassion. They train in compassion and insight as warriors, and this is how they navigate the world through the halls of power and through the cities and the streets of those that are beset with confusion and darkness in this time. And through the embodiment of these two qualities, they respond with the warrior spirit to bring the wisdom, the embodied wisdom of the Shambhala vision into this time. And Shambhala is a kingdom of wisdom, of embodied wisdom. And as I was sitting with this meditation, which I really love from, I think it was Ram Dass, I am loving awareness. Beautiful meditation. And it's so simple, but for me, that's the heart essence of embodied wisdom, that awareness without love is detached. It is inert, you know, and and disconnected. And love without awareness is naive. It doesn't know how and where to place itself to be effective in action. And so when we bring love and awareness together, that's when we experience embodiment of wisdom. So I'd love to, before I define the terms a little more, just to open into the chat, what do people think embodiment is? When you hear the word embodiment, what does that mean to you? And you can speak it out loud or put it in the chat. What is embodiment? So just take a moment, what embodiment is. And I'm not looking for a right answer or a wrong answer or just any kind of thing. What's out there with embodiment? Taking space, presence. Thank you, Olivia. Anyone else? Embodiment, living your truth. Mm-hmm. Anyone else? When what I believe coincides with my daily life. Interesting. So I might, what I'm coming today to the session with, and I really like that. I think it's important that we are careful with like our certainties with definitions. I don't think one definition encapsulates these, big, large concepts. It can be many things at once. So, I want to share that with a caveat that I'm sharing. This is, my working understanding of embodiment coming to today, which is something that is felt and experienced as a way of knowing, an ongoing relationship between awareness and lived experience. Beautiful ability to be present with sensation. Yeah, so I think that's kind of along the lines of what I'm saying, something that can be felt and experienced as a way of knowing. And this is important when it comes to yoga because yoga has three primary ways of knowing. In the Yoga Sutras, Patanjali writes, Pratyaksha Anumana Agama Pramanani. That is where yoga defines how do you know something? How do you know something that's true? And so the three ways of knowing, it says pratyaksha, which means direct perception, through direct expression, through felt or known experience. Right? This direct experience is considered to be one of the pramanas. Pramanas means ways of knowing. The other one is anumana, which means inference. That if this is the case, then if I see this, then that means that this must be true. So pratyaksha, direct perception is if you see a fire on a stove and you put your hand close to it, you feel that it's hot. So you're like, I know that it's hot because I feel it on my skin, right? As opposed to if you have a pan on the stove and there's oil on it, and you're looking at it from a distance and you see smoke coming out from the top, you can say, well, if there's smoke coming out, I can infer that the stove must be on because the heat is what would make the smoke rise. This is called inference. And the other form is called agama, which means testimony from a trusted source. So if you really trust your mom and your mom says, listen, don't put your hand on that thing because it's hot, it's going to burn you, then you're like, I don't need to put my hand on it to find out the hard way. I trust this person. And because I trust this person, I know from what they say that this is going to be true. Now, this highest form of knowing is through our direct experience. And yoga, as a practice, is designed to give us this knowledge of directly experience something. So I think that as yoga teachers, it's one of our highest responsibilities to say, I have the responsibility to lead someone to have a direct experience of something within them. This is a great responsibility, actually. And to be in this teacher seat uh, in yoga is to say, okay, what have I experienced? How do I establish myself in that experience? And then how do I find a way to create that experience for someone else? In order to do this, we need to embody something. That's the idea of the embodiment. There's also this other word that we're using in this class, which is wisdom. And wisdom is kind of is more of a situational knowing. So you have knowledge, which is transferable information, right? I can tell you this information. And then skill you have is an action that can repeat. But wisdom is a very context sensitive and embodied response. So, for example, when I have a challenge with it, when my grandfather is dead now, right? But he was a real romantic and he knew a lot about love. And so when I had a question in a relationship, I would go to my grandfather because my grandfather would listen to my situation and he would really understand the context. And based on the context, he would give me an embodied response saying, I know from my experience, this is what you're going through. And this is the likely outcome of this situation. And I knew that my grandfather had the experience that I would get wisdom from him, right? I didn't go to a book for some information about what to do, like, for example, the different love languages. Someone, who doesn't have the wisdom will be like, oh, there's 4 love languages, and which love language should you use? Whereas if I go to my grandfather, I know that his wisdom is going to take this information and give me a context sensitive response. So this is wisdom. And so wisdom kind of knows the origin and likely outcome of a situation, which means we've gone through some experience. So when it comes to embodied wisdom. This is what the intention is of this session, teaching from embodied wisdom. We have to be able to reflect and understand our experience from the inside out and then teach from that place, which is a much harder thing to do than teaching by just transferring knowledge or just teaching someone a repeatable skill. Teaching from embodied wisdom means that we are aware of our experience. And as we are aware of our experience and observe our experience and the outcomes of that experience, and we begin to see this is what happens when I do this, and this is what happens when I do that, which is very different from a more performative approach to yoga, which is this is what the book says, and I just do what the book says. And if you do this and you do this, that's the right posture, right? Or this is the right thing to say. This really is to learn this, you have to put yourself in situations again and again and inquiring, what am I noticing? What am I sensing? What am I feeling? What am I noticing? What am I sensing? What am I feeling? And by continuously doing this through your own experience, you're able to start teaching. One of my favorite quotes from a teacher that made a huge impact on my approach to the practice of yoga asanas. Her name is Donna Farhi, and she calls it learning to move from the inside out. And what she said is, if there's no ideal process of perception, everything you feel or sense is worthy of your observation. If there's no ideal process of perception, everything that you feel or sense is worthy of your observation. In order to really gain wisdom from many sources, we have to not pre-select what is important or not important. What is worthy of my attention? What is worthy of my observation or not? There's this quality of openness and curiosity from wisdom to come from any direction. And then to be able to convey that in an experience for someone why don't we do a little exercise for this? So I'm going to invite you to you don't have to stand up. You could stand up. If you're not in a position to stand up, that's fine. You can sit down as well. And I'm going to ask you to do a simple action. I'm going to invite everybody to just lift your arms above your head and bring them down. Again, lift your arms above your head and bring them down. Right? And then just relax for a moment. So I'm going to come and bring some knowledge to you. Each part of your body can be engaged in the movement of lifting your arms. In particular, the parts of the body that are being expanded and moved by your breath. Also, whenever you are about to perform an action of lifting or reaching, you can also ground through the floor in order to create a deeper relationship with the earth. Now, this is me just giving you some information. Okay? You don't maybe know what to do with that, right? But then let's lead it through in a way in the body. Okay? So, inviting you to close your eyes and bring your attention to your feet. Soften through the feet and feel your feet like sand pouring down through your legs, moving through the feet and down into the earth. As you inhale, observe the lungs and feel them expanding. And as you exhale, feel the lungs contracting. And as you inhale, feel the lungs expanding. And as you exhale, feel the lungs contracting. Now, on your next inhale, use the expansion of the lungs and feel as if the lungs are supporting your arms to lift up over your head. And then on the exhale, feel the contraction of the lungs and feel the arms being released downwards with the support of the lungs. And again, on the inhale, feel the expansion of the lungs supporting the lift of your arms up towards the sky. And then as you exhale, feel the lungs condensing, supporting the release of your arms down to the earth. And inviting you to do that one more time. And then relaxing. When you're ready, just coming back, opening your eyes. And I would love to hear from a couple of people, what was the difference for you in the first way that I invited you to lift your arms and bring them down versus the second? And you feel open to turn your mic on and speak. Anybody can chime in at any point. If you feel more comfortable writing, you're welcome to do that as well. Did anyone notice a difference?
It felt, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, I felt one is trying to do the movement and the other is allowing the movement.
Aha, beautiful. Trying to do the movement and allowing the movement. Let's extrapolate on that life. Can you notice in your life the difference when you're really trying to make something happen versus when you allow it to happen? Right?
Yeah, all the time.
All the time. Exactly. So this
Yeah,
applies not just in our body, but in our mind and situations with life, right?
yeah.
Beautiful. Um, who was the other person that chimed in? Body felt more connected. Beautiful.
Yeah, it
I
felt
think it was
like
Peter. Yeah.
it felt like the second wave felt like a fuller, more involved experience. Like more of my whole body was involved as opposed to just the arms and following instructions, basically.
Yeah. 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 Thank you. Yeah, everything was involved. Now, it's interesting because the moving principle of practice that this refers to is called engage. It's the engage principle, which means the different systems of the body are engaged in the movement. Anyone else? Yeah, I got a couple of responses here. Was thinking more on the first one. Second one was a more heightened awareness. Yeah, that's also a really beautiful thing about teaching from a place of, I like to think about it as polyrhythm or polyrhythmic awareness. When, it's something amazing. When the brain it has to do two things at the same time, it kind of becomes still and quiet, right? So, you know, this is what polyrhythm, I'm a musician as well, and I'm really into percussion. And for example, many cultures, especially Africa, I love Africa, that they do these polyrhythms where, one is a 3 beat count and the other's a 2 beat count. And when you get into this polyrhythm, your mind kind of just starts to melt and it gets into this trance-like state, right? And so when you are inviting someone to feel the expansion and contraction of the lungs, soften and root through their feet, observe their breath, lift the arms, what happens is that without you telling them to quiet their mind, they just come into a deeper state of presence, right? Because you're allowing the full absorption of the mental capacity into the present moment experience. And this is a way for you to actually give people this embodied sense of what does it mean to be in presence? What does it mean to be fully present to your experience? And you're leading them through into that. First one was more physical. Second was moving through the air like flying. Yeah, I love that, and that for me has often been my experience is that when you're using the existing movement of force of air moving in and out of the lungs, then things feel lighter when you lift your arms, right? Again, that then can connect to a principle of life, right? When you work with the force and momentum of what's available already in the natural process of life, it feels more effortless. Rather than working against, you're working with. So all of a sudden, through the body, you're recognizing these beautiful life principles because all of life and all the wisdom of nature is expressed in the body. We can experience in the body, and then as yoga teachers, from this understanding, we can transmit the wisdom. We can transmit the wisdom of nature through people's direct experience of the body. And this is generally my favorite way to teach in class. I love rooting people into some experience within the body, which is an expression of nature's intelligence, and then saying, how might this apply to our life? How is this also a reflection of what happens in our minds or what happens in our relationship? And so the more that you root into this, the more natural and embodied the wisdom becomes, and you make it very accessible to people because everybody has a body and they can experience and feel and sense their body. And that gives them a deeper understanding of how that operates in the mind and in life as a whole. And I think that's one of my favorite things about teaching yoga. Now, in this talk today, I also wanted to touch upon the 5 paths of yoga. And I have a little bit of time to do that because I think it's important to know that there are different streams of yoga. So, uh, to start with, I want us to think of yoga as 3 things. Yoga is a practice. Okay? It's a practice, it's something that you do. Yoga is also a path. It's a path that you walk. Yoga is also a state. It's a state of consciousness or a state of being. It can also be considered to be a stage. So it's a state or a stage of being. So it's these 3 things at the same time. There are many yogas out there. India has a almost uncanny obsession with truth and to realize the supreme, the ultimate. And you see it in many ways, like Indian rhythm, for example. Tabla players, the stuff they do is absolutely madness what they've done with rhythm. And then you go into the music and the way that they break down every shade of note and every shruti, like they want to go to the ultimate of sound until you disappear into silence and the infinite. Okay, this is how the Indian mind thinks. They go into philosophy and they go to the absolute end of philosophy that takes you to the point where the mind can go no further. And the only way for you to realize the absolute is for the mind to be transcended entirely. And then they use yoga to take you there. So this culture is just so into this. Yeah. So there's many paths in which these individuals have gone to experience and realize the ultimate or the supreme or the divine consciousness. And these are connected to the kinds of dispositions of personalities that are out there. So these five main paths of yoga, some of them you may have heard, some of them not. One is bhakti yoga, and this is the path of devotion, the path of feeling. Jnana yoga is the path of knowledge through inquiry, through insight. Karma yoga is the path of action, and this is undertaken through service. Then you have Raja Yoga, and this is the path of meditation, concentration, of regulation. It really focuses on regulating the nervous system. And then Hatha Yoga, which is an aspect of this Raja Yoga, is the yoga of the body, of balancing the energies, and doing that through sensation, through experiencing in the body. And these are all different paths of yoga. And I feel that in this time, we need an integrated yoga. And I'm not the first one to say this. Many yogis of modern times have been saying the same thing. Because we live in times of greater complexity, our yoga itself needs to reflect that complexity. Complexity awareness is really the capacity to hold multiple viewpoints, often contradictory, at the same time, so that a synthesized truth can emerge. We see that in the social media landscape today, right? There's so many opposing viewpoints. How am I capable of holding multiple opposing viewpoints in order for a deeper truth to emerge? So in times of complexity, our yoga itself needs to become more complex. Complex is different from complicated. We don't want more complications in life, but complexity is a natural evolution of every living system. Even a baby comes into the world, and in the beginning, a baby's reality is simple. And over time, as we become older, we are able and expected to handle more complexity, more nuance in our thought, in our emotion, in our expression. So yoga itself has become, in response to this time, needs to become more complex, and complexity is sustained through integration, right? You can have a lot of complexity as long as there's integration. When there's complexity without integration, then things start to become inefficient and fall apart. So to find an integrated yoga practice, we want to bring these five paths together. So bhakti yoga, we find through expression of devotion and feeling. Often this comes through mantra, through chanting, through stories, through poetry, through music. And when we think of this as a path of yoga, we use, whether we listen or whether we use our voice to communicate through it, or through offering of ourselves in prayer to the whole, this brings us into this quality of deep reverence and feeling and returning to the source of being in our hearts. This is a practice within yoga. The other one, Gyan Yoga, the yoga of knowledge or inquiry and insight, there's three parts of this yoga. One is called Shravana, the other one's called Manana, the other one's Nididhyasan. So this is the yoga of contemplation. This means that our yoga, a practice of yoga, means listening deeply to teachings that vibrate the resonance of unity or truth. When we listen deeply to these teachings and then we contemplate them and see how can I apply it to our life, you're practicing yoga. You don't need to be on the mat to do it. Just by simply doing this, this is a yoga. This is very important in a world that's filled with falsehood. How do we recall and connect to that vibration of what is actually true? By doing that, we fortify our body-mind system with some ability to recognize truth in the system. The other one is the karma yoga. This is the yoga of service through action. In the Bhagavad Gita, this is considered to be the essential yoga of this time, because in order for us to live in the world, we have to act in the world. And in order for our action not to embroil us in unwanted situations or to cause suffering for ourselves and others, we need to act in accordance with the Dharma or the truth force. And the way in which we learn how to do this is by saying, how can my action somehow be of benefit or upliftment or service to the community or to the whole of which I'm a part? When we have that as our focus and intention, it helps us to see clearly our intentions and the consequences of our actions. As we do this, we become more wise and more refined. So, by considering our action as a path or practice of yoga, it improves our sense making ability and it also makes us less self centered. And when we become less self centered, we actually end up having less problems in our life because most of the problems in our life arise from always looking at ourselves. Did I get what I want? Did this person do what I wanted? Was I able to avoid the thing that I thought was going to cause me pain, or was able to get the thing that I thought was going to cause me pleasure, right? And so it transforms the mind in a way where the mind is able to see clearly the needs of the whole of which we are a part. Then the Raja Yoga is very important in this time. In a time where the currency is our attention. They say this in any technology platform that if you're not paying for the product, you are the product. Okay? So in this digital world, our attention is the most valuable currency there is. Our attention is what is constantly being grabbed at and mined by the entire capitalist system. And as a result, it fragments our attention. We feel overwhelmed and burdened by information and all these sources that want to claim our attention as the source of value for them. Raja Yoga trains us to focus and concentrate our mind, to tune into our inner experience in our nervous system, and to reclaim it with sovereignty to say, I am the creator of my experience. In the deeper aspect of Raja Yoga, it prepares the mind to go into the various states and stages of meditation. This is important in this time that we utilize the tools of yoga intentionally to train the mind, even just for us to maintain sanity in the world that we're in. Yeah. Then the last one, Hatha Yoga. Hatha Yoga is the yoga of bringing balance between the masculine and feminine or the solar and lunar forces in the body. And this is important because in order for us to serve and work in an integrated way in the world, we have to be able to bring balance to our energy and to our emotions on the level of the nervous system. And so the Hatha Yoga practice refines this body instrument. So we become more sensitive to all that we are picking up and experience, but we are not compromised by that sensitivity because we've brought integration and balance within the system so that we can move through life with greater energy, greater focus, greater capacity, and greater strength. And Hatha Yoga gives us that. So these five paths of yoga are the integration of what I believe, is part of how we are going to enact this Shambhala warrior vision, this Shambhala warrior prophecy. We have to prepare and train ourselves as if we are warriors in a time that is going to try and fragment us and divide us in so many ways. And the way for us to come as integrated beings is through each opportunity that life presents us. We use it as a way to become more whole. And these yoga practices are designed to foster wholeness. This is what the essence of I understand as yoga is. Union means wholeness, embracing our wholeness in any context and situation. Now, I say this as an aspirant of the path. Yeah, I too, for many years, have been interested in these areas and topics. And over time, I've begun to see the wisdom of the sages and the truth in these paths. And I really feel that this is a medicine of the times, actually. I think yoga is a true and good and valuable and beautiful medicine that if we ingest this medicine, we receive this medicine and it heals us, then we have the ability to share this medicine with others. I'd like to close with a teaching I received from a group of monks that I hosted in Vancouver. They were these Gyalto chanting monks from Tibet. And in the opening, one of the, I think he was the head monk, he said that in our tradition, we see the Buddha, which is the awakened consciousness, the one who has realized the ultimate, the truth. This Buddha is the doctor. And the Dharma or the teachings that arise from this consciousness is the medicine. And we as monks, we are just nurses. We are here to administer the medicine of the awakened beings because this medicine cures suffering. And that was what the Buddha awoken to a path of curing suffering. I believe that yoga, from these awakened rishis and teachers, have passed this dharma and medicine, which is timeless. Our work as yoga teachers is to receive this medicine in the context of this time. When we receive it in the context of this time, and yet we have deep reverence and respect from the timelessness of the truths, then we are able to deliver it as medicine that can be received by people living in this time to alleviate their suffering. And I believe this is the biggest gift that we can give as yoga teachers, to establish this coherence, the reverence of the teachings, to be aware of these different paths, practice it as a form of embodied wisdom, and then be able to pass it to those who come into our classes and our mats. And as you can hear, I'm passionate about it. So that's why I love to teach yoga, and have more people experience this and for them to have the joy of passing this on in their practice. Uh, so I'll stop there. And if anybody has any thoughts or questions, I'd be happy to take one in this time. I'm hearing crickets, but they're just outside my door because I live in Costa Rica.
Zamir, I think that you just have so much wisdom to offer us. It just takes us a moment to receive. And for me, I mean, I've been sitting with you and learning from you for years now, and I still receive so much clarity. It's almost like you connect so many dots for me around. I just resonate so deeply with your vision for yoga off of the mat as a vision for the world. And the role of a yoga teacher and a space holder and how important that is in today's day and age. So, yeah, I just wanted to share a little bit of gratitude for you and what you brought into the circle today. And yeah, if anyone has any questions, it can be anything. It could be a comment, maybe something that he shared that was really insightful for you.
Yeah, I would like to add on to that. Why I think it's important to do this in containers with guides is that a lot of the wisdom comes from integrating our shadow. You know, like as you do this practice and you really do them in community, all your shadow material is going to come up, right? And with other people that have gone through this, you know, we're to be honest, like frankly, we are dealing with our own addictions, our own habits, our own pride and ego projections and all the things. I'm by no means a perfect vision of this. You know, I've had to become over many times again and again coming with all the afflictions, as the Buddha says. So, you know, it's not like, yeah, it sounds beautiful when I share it. And it's true, it is beautiful, the path. But in order to experience that beauty, we have to reconcile with all those parts of ourselves that are not that. And so the practice and the community is designed to support us to move through it. You know, that's how I see it. Henry, you have your hand up. You have to unmute your microphone.
So I'm really grateful for everybody here, and I'm grateful for Yoga Nidra, and I have been a great devotee of, so to speak, of Christians Yoga Nidra channel for years, and it really is just so special to be here. I just wanted to say briefly that I look forward to returning to this and listening to the recording. And I'm wondering if you have any pointers on how to integrate Yoga Nidra into your daily life and rhythm of life, because, you know, sometimes I do it in bed as I'm falling asleep. Sometimes I do it as a nap. Sometimes I do it this, that, or the other. But I really haven't developed a conscious practice of it. And I'm not
Well,
looking at that as a goal, but I don't know. I mean, I'm just giving you that as a riff. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know.
Well, Henry, the perfect person to answer that happens to be teaching the next session, and that's
Oh,
Kristen Rose. You're just right on the money. You know, Kristen is here to teach it, and I by no means will be the one to answer that for you, but I'm really glad that you asked it, and it's a perfect segue into Kristen. I've now arrived at the end of my time, so I'm very grateful for all of you who've come and to continue to join us on this journey. I feel that the teachers that we have in this yoga school are exceptional, and I'm very grateful to be able to hold space and to share with them. So, namaste. Thank you. Thank you. And I'll hand it over to Kristen.
Okay, so